So the amazing F1 racing in Las Vegas had some really bad moments for McLaren and Ferrari teams. But if you think that scientist's mistake was confusing, just wait until you hear what made Norris crash. He ended up going to the hospital after the race. It was a really bad crash, and it looks like there was a way he could have avoided it if the track was better. His team boss, Andrea Stella, said this directly, and now Fernando Alonso has joined other people who are complaining about whether F1 should race at places like this. Is the criticism about Las Vegas fair? And could Norris have avoided crashing? The terrible moment in Las Vegas started during the first practice when Carlos Sainz ran over a manhole cover while going over 300 km per hour. This caused huge damage to his car's frame, battery, and Monaco parts too. To make things worse, the FIA made two unfair moves against the Ferrari team. First, they didn't let them fix their car without getting a penalty. Second, they didn't pay them back the money that Ferrari thinks would hurt their budget planning for the year. The damage they reported is around $2 million, and this seems like something very serious. But the FIA might have more problems besides Ferrari having private talks with Ben Sulayem until this gets fixed in their team's favor. Lando had a qualifying session he wants to forget, but that doesn't mean the race should have ended the way it did for him. He crashed at high speed after something bumped him up from the road surface and made him lose control for just a second. This accident looked like a real driver mistake because of how much fuel he had and the lack of grip. But when the Woking team's boss looked closer, he found something strange about Norris's crash, and he wants to make things right soon. Talking more about this, Andrea Stella thinks there's a lot of work that needs to be done with the track surface. It was a specific bump combined with Norris's cold tires that caused his driver's accident. Stella also said there's a bump in that spot, and you can see all cars spark when they go through this bump. He thinks the combination of the bump and cold tires might have surprised Lando. He thinks that bump should be fixed if they keep racing at night, because the tires will always be cold with low grip and it becomes a very tricky corner. During the weekend they already saw cases of cars losing control in that place. No matter what time they race, they strongly recommend that this bump gets smoothed out. To be fair, it's the same bump for everyone, so it just depends on your speed, how your tires are, how your car is positioned there, and how close you are to the car in front. There are many factors, and maybe Lando assumed there was enough grip, but there's another factor we might add to this whole situation. Mario Vet's McLaren running too low to the ground and causing the incident a little bit themselves. I'm not saying they did this on purpose, God forbid. I'm just saying that maybe the setup the MCL38 had, one that was quite low to the ground because of the low downforce needs of the track, may have had something to do with why Norris's car was the only one too sensitive to this bump. The fact that it happened early in the race, when the car has more fuel making it heavier and closer to the ground, is also something we shouldn't ignore in this whole situation. So while we do feel bad for the whole McLaren situation, there are some things that point to the car having a role in how this crash happened. One of the main things that hurt the drivers' race in Vegas was the track temperature. While not as low as they first expected, it was still a huge challenge to deal with if you wanted to brake properly and make an overtake. Overall, it seemed like turn 11 was quite a challenging turn for drivers, and Norris's crash was not something to take lightly, mostly because he was taken to the medical center before being taken to a nearby hospital for safety checks. He is perfectly healthy and will race in the next race. But will the FIA pay a lot of attention to this, considering all the praise the race itself got? It's very doubtful that the governing body will admit it was the track layout's fault for what happened to Norris, because after all, it only happened to one driver. Not that it doesn't mean the fault shouldn't be looked at with the track surface at all. But if we see how they handled the whole situation with Sainz, with a much more obvious problem, one that completely broke through the chassis of the SF23, then you would understand our doubts about Norris and McLaren actually winning something. In this case, and it's not just McLaren who doesn't like the current Las Vegas circuit. And no, it's not Max Verstappen who kept criticizing. Fernando Alonso, the two-time world champion, believes there's a lot of work to be done here. Quite frankly, he feels like the cars that are on the grid right now are not right for circuits like Las Vegas. Talking about this even more, he said there's not much fun driving at this kind of circuit at 360 km per hour with no grip, no visibility, and bouncing like crazy. He knows from the outside the show may look good, but these cars are not made to go around corners at 80 km per hour. They're made to go to Suzuka, Barcelona, and Silverstone and use their full potential. That's where we need to balance the championship and the calendar. It is what we're doing, but he doesn't think this is the only way to go. We need to keep the traditional races as well, where the Formula One car can really shine. McLaren's problem was not only with Norris's race result. Piastri himself was included in a racing incident with Lewis Hamilton, and that made him get a flat tire after contact with the 7-time world champion, while he did recover to finish 10th with the fastest lap of the race, which was very important. Now that Aston Martin is just 11 points behind the Woking team, the flat tire itself was not the reason why the race ended the way it did for the Aussie. Talking about the race and how it all ended up this way, Piastri said it was kind of just an awkward one. Neither of us had really committed to the corner that much. Then we both committed at the last minute, and then he was trying to back out of it, but they just ended up meeting in the middle and he had a flat tire from that. He doesn't think it really hurt their race that much, honestly. It would have been interesting to see if a one-stop could have worked from that point. It's always hard to know. They could have been a sitting duck like Gasly. A lot of things for a lot of people went wrong in that race and he was in the same boat. But now, that's in the past. McLaren has a mission ahead of them. Keep the 4th place in the Constructors' Championship alive. This shouldn't be that much of a problem for them considering how competitive they are on circuits like Abu Dhabi with the downforce requirements switching from low to high from Vegas to Yas Marina. Both Piastri and Norris would be giving everything in their power to keep the current place they fought for so hard throughout the entire season. On top of that, Norris has taken a hard hit in the Drivers' Championship and now there's a huge challenge for him to pass either Alonso or Sainz and not get passed by Leclerc. In the last part of the race, there are just a few points separating these 4 drivers. The ball has been thrown in the FIA's court, and although there's a lot to be worked on about the race, the negativity that surrounded the entire race weekend, that has disappeared almost for sure. We're very likely to see highly competitive races here in the future, but the fact that changes need to be made both on the circuit surface and the timing of the race remains something that the governing body of the sport needs to work on. And rest assured that neither McLaren nor Ferrari will let this matter rest until it's solved in their favor.